my shot and it's clean. This is my city, yeah, this is my team. If you talking, it's all to be nice. I play with all of my life. You see my name in the lights. Better get right, I'm a champion. The game is in trouble. I've been in my depth for the piece of the puzzle. I got it for real. Still keep me going. I wake up and hustle. You won't see me buckle. I've been in the field. Man of the town. You been in your fields. I'm adjusting this crown. Call me your majesty.
All right, what's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the Kuzma Middleton trade that went down this morning, pretty early this morning. So Chris Middleton, now a Wizard. Kyle Kuzma, now a Buck. The Bucks give up Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, which was our first-round pick this year, as well as a first-round pick to the Wizards. The Wizards give us Kyle Kuzma and Patrick Baldwin Jr. I'm not really going to talk about what the Bucks gave up and all that much, other than Chris Middleton being sidelined a lot recently. He was a big role in the 2021 championship, but since then he's missed over 50% of the games in the last 3 years, and it showed for the Bucks in the playoffs and in the regular season, not getting it done as well as they used to. And Chris Middleton used to be one of my favorite players on the Bucks. He was probably a top 3 of my favorite players in the league, behind Giannis and Luka, until he started being inconsistent and missing key moments, key games when they need him most. So I'm not upset to see him go. And I love that we have Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma may not be a superstar, may not be even a star, but he has been the second, if not the best player on the Wizards the last few seasons since being booted by LeBron and the Lakers. But he was a crucial part of their 2020 championship run, behind LeBron, behind AD, behind D'Lo. I think without that, they probably still could have won because it was Miami, and Miami didn't really give them a lot in the bubble. But I still think Kuzma played a crucial role in that title and title run. And to see him go to the Wizards and be on one of the worst teams in the league, I can't say that I hate it, but I don't like that for him as a player. I also kind of wish they would have found a way to package Jordan Poole. Since we did give up a first-round pick, I wish we could have gotten Jordan Poole in the trade and potentially given up Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, both. I'd have been okay with that. Or Bobby Portis go. There's a lot of players on the Bucks that I'd be okay with if they walked. Like, the only players that I don't want to see go are Brook Lopez, Giannis, and Dame. Like, anybody but those 3, I'd be okay with being packaged and sent. But I do want to talk about Patrick Baldwin for a second. He hasn't been great. He played on the Warriors for a couple seasons right out of the draft. And to say that he was an underwhelming producer is an understatement. He averaged 5 minutes through, I think, 70 games played at Golden State, and bounced back and forth between them and their G League team. Same thing when he gets to Washington. He bounces back and forth from their G League team to the starter, to the main roster. Only gets 4.9 minutes through 22 games since being a Wizard, which is a decent amount of games this year. It's about half the games this year for someone who doesn't see the court a lot. But I think on the Bucks, he's going to be with the G League team a lot. But with injuries, like Giannis isn't 100%, Dame isn't 100%, Lopez isn't 100%, you're going to see the Bucks kind of delve into that G League team and put them on 2 ways, call them up until they need them. Especially with Patrick Baldwin being a very versatile player. He can play multiple positions. He's a primary forward, but he can get out and play that 4 if he needs to, step into the 5 for a few minutes if need be, like Chris Livingston did the other night, and even step up to the 2 if Dame is out and we have someone else running the point. He can step in and do that if he has to. But I think something I really want to talk about is bringing Kyle Kuzma in. He's got that energy. He's got the need to make shots if he needs to. He can score just about anywhere inside 30 feet. He can probably put it up. And I like that he provides some spacing that we don't really see with Taurean Prince. Taurean Prince probably going to get booted to the bench. Kuzma comes into the starting lineup with Gary Trent Jr. And I think having that spacing because Trent Jr. is a shooter, Dame's a shooter, Kuzma's a shooter, Giannis not so much, and you have Lopez who can sit corner or wing, and you give Giannis that freedom to do whatever he wants. With Taurean Prince, he sits outside, but he's just kind of useless out there. So defenders are going to double Giannis down low, double Portis down low, double Lopez down low when they get in. And now you've got Kuzma, who isn't a lethal shooter, but he's going to make it if you leave him open. So now teams are going to have to put a decent perimeter defender out there and leave Giannis one-on-one to drive to the lane. And I think that's a big key in why the Bucks did not make it in the playoffs last year. They lost to the Heat in the first round. There was a lack of spacing, lack of shooting. Dame was the only real shooter last year. They didn't have Gary Trent Jr. last year. Pat Connaughton off the bench didn't do a whole lot. Portis was, I think, the second best shooter percentage-wise with Brook Lopez. And they kind of swap each other in and out. They're never on the court at the same time. So seeing Kuzma come in, who's a 40%, almost a 40% three-point shooter when shooting over 4 or 5 threes a game. Anything less, he's in the mid-30s. And then he shoots probably, I think, 45 to 50% from the field, which is right around the league average, maybe slightly higher because his shot selection is very good. One thing that does lack for Kuzma is his defense. And with being on the Bucks, you're going to have to learn to play defense because Giannis is probably a top 3 defender in the league, if not maybe 4 or 5. Dame's a decent perimeter defender. Brook Lopez is good at blocking shots. Portis is good at contesting at the rim. Taurean Prince, that's probably what he's best at, and same with Gary Trent Jr. They're both really good perimeter defenders. And I think Kuzma playing with them will help his defense even more. There's only really one key thing that I don't like about Kuzma, and it's his off the court lifestyle. We see him come in all these extravagant uniforms and fits before games. And not saying that's a bad thing, but it kind of delves into his lifestyle. You see his social media platforms, you see his activities off the court, and they're not super mature. And I get that he's in his early 20s, maybe mid 20s now, but we see guys that are the superstars of the league, like Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic. Off the court, they're not going crazy. They're not posting to social media all the time. They're not wearing crazy things. Their lifestyle is very chill, and they're the best guys in the league. And I'm not saying Kuzma, if he changes his lifestyle, he's going to be a superstar. But I'm not saying that if he doesn't change his lifestyle, he could improve a lot better. But who's to say he does that and stays the exact same? It's not make or break by your lifestyle. But I think being on the Bucks will help Kuzma improve as a player a lot. And I'm excited for what the rest of the season holds, just to kind of see where this goes. Now, onto the Bucks side of things. I wasn't going to touch on this a little bit, but I think it is necessary to talk about what the Wizards do gain from this. They gain a better shooter in Chris Middleton, but he's just not on the court near as much as Kuzma was. And I don't think the Wizards really needed any more shooting with Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr can step out if need be. Corey Kispert's a good shooter. I think they have the shooters. I don't think they needed that. I think they needed defense, which Chris Middleton does bring, a decent perimeter defense. But he's getting older. He's in his 30s. He's slowing down. He's having back and knee problems, which isn't good for someone of his play style. Trying to shoot back and knee problems is not good, really, for any basketball player, but mainly shooters. You need your knees, you need your back, you need everything. And then getting A.J. Johnson, I think, is the steal for this trade. Also the first round pick, and they swapped seconds, which second round picks recently have been steals. But getting on to A.J. Johnson, I think it was our 23rd pick this year, first round pick. I saw a lot of promise from him. He didn't play a lot just because he's in that role that, like, you got Giannis and Chris Livingston plays above him. And Taurean Prince is obviously, I mean, he's not great, but he is better than A.J. Johnson is right now. I would have liked to see him make a step and stay with the Bucks and potentially take over that role when we get rid of Taurean Prince, when we get rid of Gary Trent Jr., step into that 3 spot. But I'd rather have Kuzma right now. So putting him at the Wizards, it may slow down his progression a little bit, but he is going to be playing with Bilal Coulibaly, who I think is probably one of the most underrated players in the league. I'm working on a video of the most overrated players in the league, but next week will be the most underrated players in the league, and I think Bilal Coulibaly will probably be number 1 to number 3, just because he's been behind Kuzma, and I'll compare his stats. When Kuzma's on the court, his stats are a lot worse and a lot less productive than when Kuzma's not on the court. And I'll get into that more in that video, talking about how Kuzma leaving will help Bilal Coulibaly go from underrated to well rated. Um, but overall, let's give a grade to close this video out. I think for the Wizards, this is going to end up being a C. I don't think it's going to improve them very much, but I also don't think it's going to hurt them. I think with them being the bottom team in the league or pretty close to it, I don't think this changes anything. I don't think you can contend in this league without having a top 30 player in the league. You got to have one of those guys that can compete with just about anybody on the court, and they don't have that. Jordan Poole is their best player. Maybe Valanciunas. Valanciunas can compete with most bigs, but not against superstar bigs. And Jordan Poole can compete with the best of point guards, but when he gets matched up with guys like Jalen Brunson and Luka and Shea, he gets buried every single time. And Middleton coming into the Wizards, I really don't see an improvement there. He's not going to play a lot. He may start, but he won't progress a lot. He's not going to get any better because he's old and he's broken down. For the Bucks, I'm going to give them, say, a C plus. I'm not going to say that it's going to overnight turn them from a barely over 500 team to a 60 win team, which 60 wins would mean we'd have to win out. It's not going to happen. But I do think it is an improvement, a slight improvement. I think we'll win more games with Kuzma than we would have won with Middleton. And I think getting Patrick Baldwin Jr., there's a little more upside than having AJ Johnson, because we've only seen AJ Johnson play 20 to 30 games. We don't know where he's going to be at. We've seen Patrick Baldwin in the league for a couple years, and we know what he's progressing like. We see him getting better when he plays in the G League, and I think if you leave him in the G League for the rest of the season, if you can, if our team stays healthy, I think you play him Summer League and he comes back in the fall. I think he could be a very good asset coming off the bench, very good role player. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this out for the day.